things just got dicey. In this video, I'm gonna break down Airbnb's massive new policy update that could get your account suspended or even permanently banned. We're gonna talk about what's going on, why it appears to be happening, and most importantly, if you stick around to the end, I'm gonna show you exactly what you need to do to protect your hosting business and stay compliant without sacrificing your guest experience or your income. Let's dive right in with what's actually changing. Airbnb just released a new off-platform and fee transparency policy that's cracking down on hosts who take guests off-platform in any way, shape, or form. Now, I want you to pay close attention because the wording in this policy is extremely broad and it's unclear exactly how strict they're gonna be with enforcement. But here's what we know for sure. Airbnb is making it crystal clear that they don't want hosts doing anything at all that might take revenue away from their platform or create a subpar experience for guests. So why is Airbnb doing this? Well, from what I can tell, these changes are primarily aimed at companies like Sonder and other large property management companies that have been aggressively moving guests off platform. These companies have been requiring guests to download separate apps, provide additional ID, share contact details, and jump through all kinds of hoops just to stay at the listing they booked on Airbnb. And of course, once they have the guest information, they try to get them to book directly for future stays, cutting out Airbnb completely. This impacts Airbnb in two major ways. First, it creates a terrible experience for guests who thought they were just booking a place to stay, but end up having to download apps and create accounts just to check in. I made the mistake of booking a Sonder listing a few years back, and I can confirm getting checked in was a massive headache. And second, it means Airbnb is losing a ton of repeat bookings and the fees that come with them. Now, this part isn't entirely the fault of the host, but we'll come back to that in just a minute. So Airbnb decided to put their foot down. And unfortunately, a lot of legitimate hosts like you and me might get caught in the crossfire here. Now, let's break down the key parts of this policy update. The first major change is about moving bookings off platform. Airbnb now strictly prohibits asking or encouraging users to move current, future, or repeat bookings off Airbnb. This includes offering discounts to book directly, including links that take people off the Airbnb platform, and especially canceling existing reservations to rebook them off platform. And this is actually a big one because many hosts have been building email lists and offering returning guests a discount to book with them direct. Because the policy wording is so broad, it's unclear whether Airbnb may attempt to come after hosts for using tools like StayFi to collect guest emails while they're at the property. And herein lies the rub for me personally. As we've seen over and over again with so many big companies, they get big by being the best. They focus relentlessly on providing more value to customers, and as a result, they become the Amazons or Apples of the world. But then, almost inevitably, they make a shift towards control rather than value creation. And that's exactly what we're seeing with Airbnb right now. When Airbnb first started, they were obsessed with creating an amazing platform that made both hosts and guests want to use it. They innovated constantly, added features that solved real problems, and created a marketplace that was genuinely better than the alternatives. That's why hosts put up with the fees. That's why guests trusted the platform, because the value was there. But this policy change signals a fundamental shift in Airbnb's approach. Instead of continuing to improve the platform to make it so good that no one wants to leave, they're now focusing on building walls to make sure no one can leave. It's the difference between earning loyalty and forcing it. Think about it. If Airbnb's goal was truly to provide the best possible experience, they'd be focusing on creating tools that are so incredible that hosts wouldn't even consider going elsewhere. They'd be asking, how can we make our platform so valuable that paying our fees feels like a bargain? Instead, they're asking, how can we lock people in and prevent them from leaving? We've seen this pattern with so many platforms. Facebook did it, Uber did it, and once they achieve market dominance, they shift from innovation to protection, from creation to restriction. And historically, this approach never works long term. It creates resentment, encourages workarounds, and ultimately opens the door for newer, more innovative competitors who are willing to actually earn loyalty rather than forcing it. For hosts, this means we're in a tricky position. On one hand, Airbnb is still the biggest player in the game, with the most eyeballs and the most bookings. On the other hand, they're showing that they're willing to use their power to restrict our ability to build direct relationships with our guests. The irony is that by trying to prevent hosts from taking guests off platform, they may actually accelerate the move to alternative platforms and direct bookings. Because when businesses start prioritizing control over value, customers start looking for the exits. Now, the second big change in this policy is about fee transparency. Airbnb now requires that all mandatory fees be disclosed upfront in the appropriate fee fields. This means that you can't charge guests any surprise fees after they've booked, and you can't collect payments outside of Airbnb for things like cleaning fees, extra guest fees, pet fees, or even optional add-ons like pool heating. In my opinion, this is just mandating good hosting practices. Guests hate unexpected fees, so the added transparency here is an overall benefit. I recently stayed at a listing in Spain where the host tried to charge me an unexpected fee just to check in at a different time when my flight arrived late. No better way to make a guest feel nickel and dime than to hit them with an extra 50 euros before the stay has even begun. And third, Airbnb is cracking down on requiring guests to use other websites or apps. This means you can't make guests use a separate account or register on another website to access your listing. You also can't require them to install third-party apps just to check in or access the property. Now, there are some exceptions to these rules. For example, keyless entry apps are still allowed as long as they're optional for guests, not mandatory. Same with apps that enhance the guest experience like Sonos or Nest. And if you're legally required to collect certain information from guests due to local laws, HOA rules, or building security requirements, you can still do that, but you must disclose this in your listing description so guests know about it before booking. As for my opinion on this one, I can see both sides. On the one hand, I hate being told to download some stupid app just to access my listing. On the other hand, I can totally see the need in certain situations. The most obvious of which is if guests need to sign a liability waiver so that the host is protected by their insurance. Once again, this comes back to the question of value. If Airbnb made improvements to air cover and did a better job of building trust with hosts, then they wouldn't feel like they need these third-party insurance tools. So what does this mean for common hosting tools? Well, if you're using a digital guidebook service like Hostfully, be very careful about including email opt-ins. While guidebooks themselves aren't explicitly prohibited, anything that collects guest contact information for marketing purposes could be really risky. If you're using StayFi to collect guest emails through your Wi-Fi network, this is a bit of a gray area. Since guests are already at your property and using the Wi-Fi voluntarily, it might be okay, but Airbnb could potentially crack down on this in the future. And if you're using any third-party services for liability waivers or background checks, you'll need to make sure these are either disclosed in your listing or reconsider whether they're necessary. Now, here's what I recommend you do immediately to protect your account. First, review all of your guest communication. Make sure you're not asking for contact information or encouraging guests to book directly in the future. Second, check that all of your fees are properly disclosed in the Airbnb fee fields. Don't try to collect any payments outside the platform. And third, if you're using any third-party apps or services that guests need to use to access the property, work on making them optional or finding alternatives. Fourth, if you have any legal requirements for additional guest information, make sure they're clearly disclosed in your listing description. And fifth, if you're doing anything at all to circumvent Airbnb fees, such as adding extra nights via reimbursement request rather than directly through the calendar, stop doing so immediately. If Airbnb makes up a significant portion of your overall bookings, it just isn't worth the risk. And remember, providing a seamless, hassle-free experience is ultimately good for both you and your guests. If you want more detailed guidance on navigating these changes and optimizing your hosting business within Airbnb's rules, I highly recommend checking out B&B Tribe. In our community, we're constantly updating our training and resources to help hosts stay compliant while maximizing their earnings. Plus, you'll get access to our exclusive vendor deals, templates, and a supportive community of hosts who are facing all the same challenges you are. You'll also be the very first to know whenever changes like this happen, so you can be sure you're not making any mistakes or missing out on crucial information. It's just $49 per month to join, and you can find the link in the description right down below. I'll be keeping a close eye on how Airbnb enforces these new policies, and will update you if anything changes. So be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any important updates. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.